Yo, what's good? It's Chosen NC, and I'm back with another video. And for this video, I just really want to dive deep into the topic of releasing old versions of ourselves with love, with grace, and with understanding. Understanding that we are not this version of ourselves anymore. We are in a new season of our life. And the first thing I want to say that is that you have to release the old versions of yourself, but also understand its importance. Understand that it has contributed to you for the being that you are today, right now, within this level of your journey. Without these experiences, you wouldn't be who you were. You wouldn't develop the mental fortitude or the toughness or the strength to really just be able to grasp life and make life what you want to make it. You got to understand that each and every day we are actively shaping our lives. We are actively creating a beautiful painting within our lives. But it's time for us to take initiative, take control, and take control of what we contribute to our life. And it doesn't mean that we can go back to the old versions of ourselves. The old versions of ourselves may want to resurface, but it's time for us to take the initiative and take the intentions to actually move past this old version of ourselves, to move past familiar habits within our life, to break out of habitual cycles within our life and move forward with love. We got to understand that love is a source of flow, love is a source of life, and the more that we connect to our own self-love is the more that we can progress within life, but not really progress within life. Embrace the journey for what it truly is. You got to understand that all life is a journey. All that you are is a journey. You will never be the finished product, but you will always be progressing each and every day on this journey. So it's about just accepting this journey, understanding that you got to let go of the old versions of yourself that no longer serve you any purpose. I feel like sometimes we have connections to these old versions of ourselves because it was familiar. We had to act out of a survivalistic, habitual cycle within our life. We had to survive. We had to do things in order to live in a limited life, in order to survive. But it's time for us to understand that we don't have to live in these circumstances no more. It's like a caged bird, not knowing that the cage is open, not knowing that the cage door is open and that we are free to leave any second of this day. Each and every moment we can make an active decision to either stay in what we already know or choose to move into the unknown. Choose to move into the unknown, choose to move into greatness, and choose to move into love. You got to embrace the unknown, because the unknown is where your progress really relies. It's where your future is, it's where the now is, in the unknown. In the now, you are not certain of your path, you are not certain of where you'll be going, but you got to understand and have that trust and knowing within yourself that it's all leading to your higher good. So it's time that you just release old versions of yourself. They may try to resurface, but you got to release them with love, understanding that they have proved their role. They have contributed their role into who you are today. And it's time for you to be better. It's time for you to grow better and grow bigger and move on to different things. Just because you went through a familiar cycle within your life doesn't mean that you have to stay in this familiar cycle. You can branch out, do more things, love yourself, and experience more things within life. You got to understand that you are the transformation that you have always been waiting for. Nothing outside of yourself is going to transform your life but yourself. So it's time for you to just branch out, do the things that you actually love, and release the old versions of yourself with love. And when I say release it with love, I don't mean just pampering yourself like self-care. I mean just actually sitting with yourself and just understanding the importance of what this season contributed to your life, what these events that you experience contributed to your life. It's all perfectly divinely orchestrated into who you are today. So just fall in love with the version of yourself right now while accepting old versions of yourself, because the person that you are right now needs to be in the present moment for it to be able to receive everything that you have worked so hard for. You cannot be stuck in the past to receive your present day gifts. You got to understand that all the gifts rely within the now. Everything that you want is in the now. You can only manifest within the now. Stop holding on to cycles, stop holding on to attachments that have served you no purpose. It has only lead us to our own detrimental causes, our own traumas. We trauma bond off of our own attachments to what we have gone through within the past. But it's time to break out and just live our life for ourselves. Live our true life. Be the beacon of light within our community. Be the beacon of light within ourselves and project our love towards ourselves inwards, not externally. You should never project your traumas externally, you got to understand that it all develops from an internal cause. And this internal cause is coming from a lack of love within yourself. And the more that you feed this lack of love, is the more that you can project positive light, the more that you can be a beacon of light. You can radiate divine light and truly be yourself. So just love yourself, value yourself, and understand that it's time for you to release old versions of yourself because it no longer serves your purpose. And if you're seeing this video, I just want to say thank you for watching. And yeah, peace.